Alright guys, Kremp again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Big updates going down with Black Ops 6 officially launching. There were some tournaments going down last night, and actually already we started to see some of the top pro teams face off against each other. FaZe not coming out on top against Toronto Ultra in what might be a very interesting storyline for the rest of the season. But also, what about snaking in the game? Last year, for the first time in a long time, the pros agreed to GA snaking from the game. In this particular title, the snaking feature, the snaking mechanic, is even more powerful than it's been potentially ever in Call of Duty, and certainly for the last 7 or 8 years. If Cellium decides that he's not respecting the GA, it could be an absolute disaster for the competitive scene. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, just a quick update on what's going on in Halo. There's been some interesting developments behind the scenes as to, well, Formal trying to form his super team, right? Formal, Renegade, Bound, Legend, that is the plan. The question is, do OpTic have the money to facilitate that? And also what's going to happen with FaZe, because, you know, if SSG are trying to rebuild around losing Bound and Legend potentially to OpTic, and also Formal is trying to get Renegade from FaZe, then, you know, what do FaZe do, right? Like, one of those organizations, in the same way to what we saw in COD, when we had Toronto, New York, OpTic and FaZe, and the 4 became 3 top teams. You know, it seems like a similar thing is going to happen in Halo, where we go from, you know, 3 top teams down to basically 2 theoretical, like, super team candidates. But that leaves the other organization. Do they even fill the roster, right? I think that's the question that we're having right now. But also, can OpTic afford to get Renegade off of, you know, FaZe potentially? And Dead Zone's been talking about our Formal, like, Hurricane, Piper and all this, for potentially pulling off these moves, and of course, equally leaving Dead Zone in a rather challenging position. There was this team announcement as well. So Omid Brooklyn confirming their new roster for the new season with Neptune, Fellow, 2ReeAl and Merc. So Merc, a player who gained a little bit of prominence at the end of last season. Optimistic about his future as well. So yeah, and honestly, the video they put together here was absolute fire, I'm not gonna lie. Cool to see Neptune back in business as well. Obviously this guy was a real talent back in certainly Cold War when he came into the scene with Florida, and then things kind of started to go wrong, of course, next year in Vanguard with the subliners. That didn't exactly go to plan, kind of went back to Halo. Now he's back to COD, it seems, with Black Ops 6. So, you know, definitely the announcement video that Omid put together here was far better than what many of these teams have been doing over the last couple of weeks. This is pretty funny. I'll share a couple of clips again for you guys in a few minutes time, or potentially towards the end of the video. Prid was talking as well about how he's played the game for so long already that he feels like he knows every spawn. And I think even Shotzzy was making the point of, wow, you know, already getting to grips with some of the spawns here in the title. So we don't know. The game is launched. As of recording, we don't know when the game is actually going to start from a competitive perspective, when the CDL starts. Usually the league confirm it around about now, but as it stands, we don't yet officially know when the first matches of the league are going to be. Are they going to be in a couple of weeks in November? When are these teams going to start practicing the game, scrimming it, taking it super serious? Who's going to be best at the start of the new title? Prid's obviously optimistic based on these comments, but I wanted to share this. So last night, we had a $4,000 4 versus 4 kickoff that people were looking for teammates for, and obviously many of the teams just play with their full rosters. So FaZe were playing it with Drazah, Simp, Cell and aBeZy, and Toronto were playing it with JoeDeceives, Insight, CleanX and Beans. So that of course is their brand new roster. Now as we know, last year Toronto had FaZe's number on LAN. Scrappy's record against Drazah, especially on LAN, is very impressive indeed, and you know, Drazah's record against OpTic is very good in favour of him. So it's how it works sometimes when OpTic versus Toronto will go a certain way, Toronto versus FaZe will go a certain way, FaZe versus OpTic will go a certain way, and sometimes it works around like that. But of course the plan for Toronto is to maintain that positive record against FaZe even without Scrappy on the team. And yes, this is a 4 versus 4 kickoff tournament, day 1, effectively day 0 in many respects, of the game. Map 1 here, they ended up playing on Vorkuta, I believe, and then after that it went the other way. So FaZe went up 1-0 in the series, and as Sim says, all playing Toronto, pretty exciting to see how these two teams get on the first day. I think the FaZe boys were streaming this, and after game 1, FaZe went up 1-0. But then, actually, as it turned out, Toronto came back and won it 2-1. So it's obviously early days here, right? But nonetheless interesting to see some of these early results, especially because Toronto will be confident they can be, you know, the fourth best team at the very least. Obviously get to as many Sundays as they possibly can. But, you know, beating FaZe over the course of a season is going to be a challenge. But they did kind of have their number on LAN last year, and their team is not massively dissimilar this year. They've still got the Insight CleanX show. It's just no Scrappy, which is a loss, no Envoy, which is a loss. JoeDeceives and Beans instead are good alternatives given where they found themselves, but of course on paper the team isn't going to be quite as strong. But let's talk about the drama with GAs and exactly what this is going to be looking like, because, well, the game is out now. We're starting to get a picture of what things need to go, and, well, as people are talking about it, the GA chat is officially back in business for the new Titan. Honestly, it might well need to be based on the way that snaking currently looks. So we know that last year, snaking, and for the last few years, snaking has been a big topic of conversation. MW19 to some degree, Cold War, it really kicked off actually when, of course, Cellium was, well, he was on FaZe for both of those years, but Cellium on FaZe was an absolute demon with the snaking. No one could seem to stop him from doing it, right? Apparently FaZe even asked Cell, like, hey, do you mind stop snaking, right? People aren't happy with us. And everything then kind of just descended into degeneracy, really, where all the pro players were just doing this to every head glitch all the time. It was bad in Vanguard as well, and then Modern Warfare 2 was maybe the worst year for it. You guys remember that hotel hardpoint where you'd get like 3 to 4 players on a team all snaking the same head glitches. So just if you guys aren't familiar, snaking is what this guy's doing at the start of the clip here. Crouching, just about going prone, then sprinting forwards to stand up again, and it's a way to see over cover, make yourself very difficult to shoot and to kill, but yet get yourself plenty of information, and then of course at any time you can just stand up and kill the guy. Now what you might notice about this clip is that the guy who obviously is in the kill cam right about here is snaking the entire time. But yet, despite the fact that this guy is snaking in his head, on his screen is visible, and then visible again, and then visible again, and then visible again, and then like 5-6 times before he eventually gets the kill. From the other guy's perspective, he cannot see anything until he finally decides to actually stand up and shoot the guy. Now, this is snaking at its worst ever. I mean, we talked the other day that in Black Ops 3, just to talk about it again, Treyarch had a perfectly good solution to this, that when you went prone, you put your hand out down to the side, and it took you a while to go prone. You could lay down in Black Ops 3, it was doable, but it wasn't really the meta, because, okay, the jetpacks existed as well, but also laying down was, it took you a second to lay down, and it took you a second to get back up, basically. Whereas, and that makes sense from like a realism perspective, but that was a solution to this problem that was designed a long time ago. But in this game, Treyarch have not only allowed snaking to be a thing again, but it's actually worse than ever based on the character models. And this is the key point. This is possibly the worst that I've ever seen it, because usually when the guy is snaking, you can at least see him. It's just super hard to kill him. But like, you literally can't. This guy is snaking. Like, as we watch this clip through, the guy is snaking this header, he can see us. Yet we can't see him at all until here, where he finally stands up and decides to get the kill. Like, you can see it in the kill cam, how the guys are snaking again and again and again. You can't even see him. Now, the reason why this happens is because there is a mismatch between the character model of the character and what the player actually sees, which is why snaking has always been a phenomenon, really, is that when you're moving so quickly like this, in and out of different transition, like stance modes, basically, your character model on your screen does not necessarily match up to what the opponent is going to see, which means that on your screen, you can perfectly validly see over this piece of cover, whereas on the other guy's screen, you are still kind of halfway between prone and crouching when you're doing this, just because the character models are often misaligned. Now, the worst this has probably ever been in COD was Infinite Warfare. That was the game where snaking was absolutely rife around about the Stage 1 playoffs, and it was the same thing. You would snake a heady in Infinite Warfare like this, and your character model would be invisible. The guy couldn't even see you because of the effect that I've just talked about. It's not been as bad as that since Infinite Warfare. Until now, it seems, where snaking is just impossible to stop. Now, back in Infinite Warfare, of course, after Stage 1 playoffs, the teams decided, all right, let's not snake anymore. Let's come together and agree this makes the game ridiculous, so we're just not going to do it. Of course, ideally, you just get the devs to fix it, but for whatever reason, they don't seem to want to, or just don't have the tools or the understanding to actually do so. And as Ghosty says, oh, hell nah, this ain't going to be great for anyone. So the concern is it going to be GA'd again? The GA from last year held. People, with very few exceptions, held to not snaking, and it made the game far better to watch and far better to play as well on the competitive level at the highest ends. Unfortunately, in ranked play, good luck, right? I mean, people are going to be snaking their tits off, no doubt about it. But still, in competitive play, in the CDL, will it hold again? Or if someone, like, you know, obviously a Cellium was the chief, you know, what do they call him, chief or Cobra or whatever, for the last few years, if he decides to say, you know what, nah, I'm doing it this year, then is the rest of the league going to follow along? We need to hope that the Commissioner Zuma can ensure that the pros stick to their word of last year, or we could be in for an absolute shambles. There was as well, real quick, just some comments on flashes. Kenny hopped into some games and was getting flashed, and, you know, he was like, hang on a second, why are we doing this? It's not going to be allowed in competitive. Maybe something that quite quickly needs to get added to that gentleman's agreements list. But very much interested to your thoughts as ever in the comments. Just one final thing. This is nearly the now completed all-time grid for COD. The most aggressive player went to Vivid, which I think definitely right up there. Vivid, aBeZy, you know, someone like that. Insight, least aggressive, I think is probably fair as well. I think the category was going to be most consistent, least consistent. Least consistent player is probably Priestahh, to be honest, in his history as a player. You know, he's got to be up there in that conversation. Most consistent is quite a difficult one because, you know, most consistent often just tends to mean the best, on some level at least. Now, though, we're going at best movement, worst movement. So best movement is probably going to go to Shotzzy. Like, from an all-time perspective, I think probably Shotzzy is fair. Worst movement, though, is kind of funny. There's a few candidates for that. Probably some people will say accuracy, right? But there's even an argument for, like, some of the players that came to jetpacks and they just didn't really deliver. A guy like aBeZy maybe was kind of falling into this category. But then again, movement, what does that consider? Because, you know, in my opinion, part of movement is positioning. If you guys may disagree, but movement to me involves not just your skill mechanically moving around, but also how you move, where you move to. Do you make the right decisions when you move around? Like, these are important factors, and guys like aBeZy are actually very good at that in a game like World War II because it was all strategical. You know, the movement of some players very good in the sense of, well, he moved to the correct position at the correct time to give himself the advantage in the gunfight. To me, that's part of movement, but you know, you guys may disagree. As ever, very much intrigued to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Holy fuck, David. I just opened that in between both of us. Oh, that was crazy! That was fucking crazy! You lay down, hold on. Oh! I legit haven't not lay down.
Hardpoint is secure.
You know what I like about the New Zealand guys? They play the hard point. Oh my god! This gun is fucking acting like that. You grind. Holy fuck! Alright, then let's hit the left out. Hey, yeah, go mid. The Dolphins have to try to pinch him quick. Yeah, go up middle and try to like pinch him quick, and then collapse him left.
Last time he played up with the
Yeah.
stand it.
Yeah, just hold it for a second.
Let me.
Only one enemy standing. Find him. End